Hi, I'm digging, and this is digging the vibe, which I am. Okay, here I just share everything that I see as a remote viewer, and things that visions and prophecies that have come to me either while I'm sleeping or awake, obviously. And I don't always have a say on what I'm going to be given or what I'm going to experience. What I do know is I have a lot of questions, and as everybody else throughout their lifetime, and my questions get answered. Every once in a while, throughout the years, there's been some events that jumped out at me and out haunted me, and some I grieved so hard and so much that I often wondered um, why I was shown what I was shown when I felt so helpless, having seen what I did, and not understanding why I would see such a thing. And what I'm talking about is crimes. I am often shown crimes that at the time I have no idea, outside of how horrific it is, and the fact that I am being shown this or I am taking there, and and of course, when you're shown things like this, whether it be crimes or wars, there's even more questions. This one here that I want to share is about a gentleman by the name of Chris Watts. And how I stumbled across him, I actually stumbled across his wife one day on YouTube, and I thought, what a lovely girl. And so I listened and watched her video. She was a mother of two, and happily married, and just loved her family, and oohed and awed and gushed, just gushed over her husband. And I thought, how beautiful. So I watched a couple of videos and I followed her, for 2 or 3 days, get a feel on what was what. And like I said, I just thought, what a lovely lady. And in one of her videos, she had shared knowledge of a relationship she had had. She was married prior to another gentleman, and was in a unhealthy relationship, and wasn't happy, was oppressed, and held down, and downtrodden, really. So she was introduced to this guy, and she wasn't looking for a guy or a relationship. Chatted, 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 chatted. They met. They clicked. They dated. They got married. Beautiful children, and very unfortunate. He had one or two extra marital affairs that ultimately led to this man um, killing his wife and his two daughters. And his wife was pregnant with their third child, a baby boy. And you see the innocence. The kids were chatty catties, and he was, really involved father, and what appeared to be an involved husband, And she was a go-getter, and obviously believed that if they were going to achieve their dream, she was realistic, he would take a two-income house. I mean, yeah, a two-income family in order for them to live the life that I think women aspire. When they're young and get married, they want, the house and so on and so forth. And I think lovely. It's a lot of young women's dreams. Now, the world was freaked out because of his affair and her being so narcissistic. And everybody, takes a blind man, could actually see that she was really the lover was really manipulative and involved, had an input. But that's not here nor there. It's just my gut feeling, analyzing it, so this is just like I said, my own gut feeling. But as a remote viewer, there's all these different questions, and they're not sure what the truth really is. I think, like, what made this guy snap? Like, I mean, he went on live TV and suggested he didn't know where his family was, and wanted them to all return home happy and healthy. He just wanted his family back, knowing darn well that while he was pleading this on national television, he had in fact actually murdered his whole family. And the babies, jeepers, what, 2, 3, 4 max, and the little boy was a fetus, 3 months, and what just a life full of dreams, a whole future ahead of them. And so this guy's in jail, but they don't know why. They don't know what the conversation was. They don't know what happened, what his trigger was. When did was this premeditated? When did he decide? And why would he kill his children, his babies? Even you would think it would be a monster that would do that. And what would, provoke, especially when he was so involved, with and in his family. I mean, his children adored him as his wife. As it turns out, every relationship there's a strain of this, strain of that, and you come across a couple of hurdles and you work things through. You work them through. You have a family. There's many things to consider before you really go mucking it all up to a point where there is no return. And like I said, he was a devoted dad, so they're going, what a monster. And a devoted husband. And, they're saying, again, what a monster. Was this love affair the trigger, that ultimately provoked him to kill his pregnant wife? She was off at a business meeting. She got in wee hours of the morning. And, I was pervied to see this. And I didn't understand it. It's one of those things that they really weigh heavy on my soul because I have seen it. And when it is a situation of you being taken there in that specific time frame, or remote viewing, you still are there. You're experiencing and feeling and hearing conversations and hearing people think and the indication. Now this is what I saw via remote viewing and why. And it was a domino effect. This man in no way intended to kill his children. That was never part of his plan. He loved his children and loved them dearly, and he wanted the children and wanted to raise his daughters on his own. He didn't think it would be a big deal. He spent a great deal of time doting over his daughters because he did love them so. And as sweeties, absolute sweeties. His babies, Okay, so where am I going with this? Well, they were laying in bed. She got home after her trip. She thought initially he was asleep, and he was laying on his side. If you look at the bed dead on, he would have been on the left-hand side, looking at the wall, where he said that her wedding ring was. In fact, he was laying on that side. She was laying, if you're facing the bed, she was laying on the right. And as it turned out, he was still awake, but acted that, once she crawled into bed, she had woken him up. So anyway, there was a certain level of intimacy and so on and so forth, and then a conversation. And in that conversation, it ended up that they were speaking of parting paths. Now, she really loved her husband. This wasn't an idea of hers. She was 3 months pregnant. But she knew if that separation was going to take place, she would want to, move back to where she had the most support. And obviously there would be a transition. And in this transition, staying in Colorado wouldn't have been an option, we'll say. So, as it happened, he started to speak about his feelings, and she said, flat out, I would have to do this. But, if this is what you really want, I know I'll be okay. And she was in a real confident place in her thoughts, in her spirit, in her soul, and she was like, I want my husband, I love my husband, and we're having a baby boy. The timing is just absolutely horrible. But if this is what he really wanted, because she never, ever, ever said anything like, you have to be here. That wasn't who she was. This would be his decision. If he really loved his family and really loved her, it would have to be his choice. So she wasn't into playing head games or guilt games. On the contrary, she really loved him that much. This was really difficult for him. This is what ultimately pissed him off. Truly. And she could not understand why he was so upset over the fact that she really believed and felt, look, if this is what you really want, I don't want my family to split up. You're the father of my children, and I love you, and we're married. And I believe that if we give it the attention that we need, we can work through this. But if you really feel that you have fallen out of love with me, why would I want you to be here? I want you to love me, like really love me. And I think in the bigger picture of things, all women would feel that way. All women would make that suggestion. All women would go to that place because, and even a man, because nobody wants to be in a relationship when that person feels it's only duty and there is no love for you. Who wants that? The other thing that was extremely important to her, and she was private about, she really had and has a huge faith. She really had a huge faith and still does in God. Huge. She really believed in the Lord, in God. That was the clock that made her tick. That also didn't rub him the right way. And it was kind of like she's a do-gooder. And for whatever reason, that ended up rubbing him the wrong way. The attention that she got for being a do-gooder. And she always wanted to do good. He wanted to spaz out sometimes, just like let it all out. And she obviously encouraged it. I mean, look at the concert tickets. That's just a prime example. Bingo, right? Do I need to say more? Okay. He knew where he was at. She wasn't completely sure. She just knew that he had changed. The chemistry had changed. And not that she didn't want to deal with it, she needed to get the whole picture as to what really went on here. Now, he got so irritated by her confidence and always wanting to do good, including the fact that if he was not in love with her any longer, she was at a place, if this is what he really felt, she was at a place where she believed, okay, this is not what I want. I am brokenhearted, super shitty. I'm going to deliver a baby boy, and you're going to be nowhere around. And if you are, well, we can't be playing games here, because as to what's happening is a pretty serious situation, and that is separation and giving birth while rearing two toddlers, two little girls. He wanted a reaction from her, is what he wanted. He wanted that reaction. I don't know if he wanted to be penalized, given, shit and read the riot act, like call him on it, and, if she, did a crazy and had a meltdown, would that have made him what? What? In a woman's mind, that's just going to make him ornery. If not already, he already is. He's not himself. Click, 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 click. it goes from, passion to conversing to heated argument to he was on top of her, had his hands over her neck, her throat, and he said she never fought for her life. I don't know why she didn't fight for her life. Something along those lines. Can't word per word. But definitely the point was she did not fight for her life. And that is where in those few seconds that it took, where his brain went complete click, she looked at him and she said to him, "We are all going to die one day. That is inevitable. And if I am going to be murdered, I'd rather it be by your hands. You will do, if it's meant to be that you kill me, it'll be God's will. If it's God's will, you will end up killing me." And that ultimately was that click. Because even in that moment where he was thinking, plea, do something, scratch my eyes out. I get it where she's thinking that would just enhance and bring about even more of a violent situation. I mean, he had his, hands around her neck. And when she said that to him, that was it. His fingers locked in, and she watched her life fade. She couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe it. Now, instantaneously, boom, she was out of her body. Boom. And the first thing she thought was, no. But that no was not for herself. That no was not because of his two hands that were still locked onto her throat. It wasn't no because of the act that he was committing, that he was killing her and taking her life. It was the fact that the moment she stepped outside of her body, and I guess the moment when he snapped out of his rage, out of the red zone, his little girl Bella saw it all. She saw it all. He had no idea that she was standing there watching him strangle her mommy. And she had stood there long enough. When he saw her, like I said, is when he snapped out of the red, because that's all it was. He went into a green zone and instantly just went, "My daughter." And he quickly ran to her and encouraged her and soothed her, Bella. And he got to thinking And in this thinking, he thought, oh my goodness. It wasn't that he was worried about the fact that Bella might one day say, hey, this is what I saw as a kid. This is what I viewed. That wasn't what disturbed him. What disturbed him was he instantly thought how many years of psychotherapy would she need to go through, having witnessed that, and her at the end ultimately hating him for that action. And he couldn't bear it. He knew right then and there he ruined her life. And then when it came to Cece, the baby, he thought, I took your mommy and I took your big sister because I can't hurt her that way. This was, he knew, messed her up for the rest of her life. And it was, he didn't want, he shattered her psyche and he didn't want to hurt her at all. And knew that was his penance right there. When he realized he just ruined, it was a domino effect. She would never, recover from that. And so the baby, what was he going to do? How was she going to grow up? How balanced was she going to grow up? What if he ended up having a couple of partners? She doesn't have a mom. Is he going to pretend another woman's going to be her mom? She doesn't have her sister. She's going to be an alone child. And growing up, she's going to always think that, they were taken away and never found, or they were found murdered. And what was he going to say to Cece? How would he do that? And so then at that point, Chris Watts, I will say, he is going to hell. That's not up to him, even if he created that child. His action wasn't something he should have followed through with, because as it ended up, the people he loved the most, to spare them years of complications and grief and problems that he knew right then and there he created. Yeah. So, did he want her out of the way? I think that in this case, whether he realized it or not, even though he didn't want her there and felt like, she was goody two-shoes, and that's not where he was in that moment. There's no way around the fact the guy's going to hell. I just kind of cut that conversation, that sentence short, Because when you look at all of it, he didn't spare anybody anything. Nothing. He didn't want another man to love her, is what I wanted to say. You know, if in fact she was going to go back, you know, to her parents, and that's where her support was, and move forward, okay? Did he really want, you know, another man having anything to do with it? And then, you know, he had to think it through. He was going to have to pay support for his children and blame her for that situation, which is absolutely ridiculous. You know, nobody puts a gun to anybody's head and says, hey, you know, let's lay down together, and if by chance I get pregnant, well, we're both locked and loaded. That's ridiculous. What it was that she would ultimately, and what happens at that point in time in his life, where would his heart be and how would he react to her moving forward? And because, you know, he was going through his whatevers, you know, there was another man that stepped in and extremely jealous about his daughters. Extremely jealous about his daughters. Yes, they were not in the plan at all. And, you know, I mean, they call it a mercy killing. And it's so sad. It's really sad. But and that's what I was shown. I was shown that. And I cried a great deal when I was shown that. I think anybody that knows anything about this case sheds a tear. It is heart-wrenching. There's some things that, you know, just shouldn't happen, and that just shouldn't happen. You know, it was like 6 months ago, and I just kind of go, holy macaroni, Batman. That conversation happened, and for a wife, and she really did, like, she submitted herself to him. She had a great belief in God and a great belief in him. You know, she believed in his love for her, and that his love for her would ultimately win. Where in fact he was so enraged with her quote quote do good yeah, because, you know, he wasn't feeling it, and he had strayed, and he didn't want to think there was something wrong with him. He wanted it to be her in a big way, but she wasn't having it. She loved being a mommy, loved being a wife, loved her friends and her family first, and loved her job. I mean, she really was in her element. She had found this and worked through it and worked to get it. And that irked him. That irked him. Rather than seeing her as a bonus, somehow it became a competition to him. He didn't see her support. He didn't see her love. He didn't see her gentleness. He didn't see her humor, her dedication, how bright she really truly was, and how many people loved her, and how people love her and loved her. You know, he just grew envious because she really believed with all of her heart in doing good, doing the right thing, that it would make you happy. And that nothing came easy. She was ready, willing, and able to work through it and work for it, whatever it was. Such a beautiful soul. when I'm shown a scenario like that as to what really went on, I've never met this family. An angel, um, it's always a guide, it's always an angel. And I sure learn a lot. Like I said, some things are extremely painful. But I had to make this video, I guess. I had to say this, I guess. It was something that was really weighing heavy. And then just stumbling throughout all of this, I have just, it was brokenhearted, shocked and brokenhearted. And all of this, I was given all of this, and so I need to get it out of myself, and I need to share it, whether, and how far it goes. Maybe like a message in a bottle, it'll get to the right person. I trust the elements like that. I trust God, I trust the plan, I trust the universe. I do. You know, and obviously I trust Jesus because I know him personally. Um, uh, and some things just don't seem right. But in the end, there's a justification. In the end, it is made right. It is. Go figure. I mean, one of the things I love the most is when the reality happens in death that you realize after a moment, what seems to be a moment's lapse, or a lapse in a moment's lapse, or which way you say that. Um, and then, boom, you're like, oh, I'm still alive. Wait a minute, what? What? Okay, I can hear myself think, I'm still alive. And then you come to your senses a little more, and then you see your body, and you go, whoa, wow, oh, ugh, okay, but I'm still alive. And, look, check that out. And it's wonderful because there is an instant understanding that everything is, one, connected, and two, how it really is. Like there is a righteousness. Remember when that word was, when righteous, the word righteous was a really cool word? Say, that's righteous, man. Remember that? I remember that. So I'm going to use that. It's righteous. Yeah. Yeah. Just beautiful. Anyway, he is going to hell, and the reason he's going to hell is why he did what he did. He wanted to overpower her and show her, really? Goodness? Really? Look, this is evil. I'm evil. And who's dead? Now, who's dead and who's alive? You believed in goodness. Always goodness. Goodness. And now look. And that's exactly before he came to. Because it was simultaneous. Boom. His thought, she was out of her body. At the same time, the focus just went to the door. And she was there with her blankie, and she had a stuffy. I think a bear. She had a stuffy. And he knew right then and there. He knew right then and there. And no, it's not that he knew right then and there that he was going to have to kill her, or that he should kill her, or the thought even remotely to be in his brain. It just wasn't. It wasn't there. It was complete and utter pain. Like this huge stab that went through him when he came back, like I said, into the green zone from the red zone and realized his little girl was standing there at the doorway and had seen it. Had seen it, had seen the insanity. Yeah. And he was then faced with the decision as to what would be best for her. And he knew he did this, but what would really be best for her? What, moving forward after this, how she would be affected, and what kind of trauma. You know, he would live a life out knowing he completely messed hers right up. And he loved both of his little girls, I know that. And both of them, you know, they both, to him, in his heart and his mind, they were mercy killings. And that's how and why it ended up that way. And for her, it was because she was a do-gooder. She wanted to do good. And ultimately, it was that. It was her purity, you know, because what she wanted, any other man would go, wow, that's great. And she's loyal? Wow. You know, you're pissed off because she wants to walk on the right side and, you know, enjoys working and enjoys life, enjoys living, and wants to be the best person she can be, and that's why you don't like your wife? He knows that doesn't sound right. So why was he doing what he was doing? Therefore, he was dogging her. And then, when she said, well, I'm pregnant, right then and there, he just stepped right back and went, oh, no, you're not. You know, I mean, he didn't mind doing the whoopee thing. He didn't mind being there in the moment. He didn't mind saying, I love you. And a son, you know, wow, I always wanted a son, a mini-me. You know, what man doesn't want a son? Right? Hasn't anybody asked that question? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Gladly, he would take his son too. But he did not know whether he was in love with her or not, because when it came to letting her go, he was the one that couldn't let her go. That's right. He wanted his cake and to eat it too. And the fact that she would strive to do the right thing, you know, even in a situation like that, to say, okay, look, if you really feel this way, what do you really feel? Because if you've fallen out of love with me, it's not logical. You know, yes, I'm in a vulnerable situation. But what person wants their partner to be there out of duty and not be in love with them? There isn't one person on earth, not if they're wanting love, a real relationship. So, buddy, I hope somewhere karmically down along the line, this video catches up with you. And I also know that this video is going to tell you, is there a God? Yes, there is. Is there an imprint? Yes, there is. Because you don't know me from a hole in the wall. And be it this somehow, some way, makes its way to you, look, you really are going to hell. What you thought you accomplished, you didn't. You might have made them because you are their physical father. but you didn't have the right to smite them because of the sin you were guilty of. And that was her love of life, her love of family, her love of children, her love of God, and her love of you. You're definitely going to hell. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, so that's what I saw as a seer. That's what was shown as I viewed remotely. And I looked at everything from all different angles. I was in that whole room and then the children's room. Yes, it was really sad. Very, very. But that's the conversation. This is how the children, unfortunately, um, very unfortunately, sacrificed because of one man's rage. Absolutely. And Shanann, well, she's really happy that God's real. Her baby boy and her kids are there, and believe it or not, they're praying for him. I get that. That's ladylike, right? That's something a lady would do. Okay, I'm digging. This is the vibe. This is a true experience, by the way. It's, some might say story. It's a true story, by the way. And, yeah, I'm glad he's in jail. We know where he's going from there. Okay, you can like, share, thumbs up, and or subscribe. I did it again.